We're delighted in this episode of catching up with Kiwis in motorsport for Motorsport New Zealand to be chatting to a guy that for the past 20 years has been an unbelievable story on the international scene. He has just wrapped up a staggering sixth IndyCar crown, and he's been very good to spend some time chatting with us today. Scott Dixon, congratulations from everyone here in New Zealand. Well done.
No, thanks, man. It's a pleasure to be on, and wish I was back home in New Zealand, but unfortunately, it's not quite possible right at the minute. But missing home, and hopefully get down there sometime soon.
Amazing year, Scott. To think that you could clinch your sixth crown. What does it mean in the grand scheme of everything? Because it's been such a wild year, and to think that you could add another one to the trophy cabinet behind you is massively impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one for everybody involved, right? Whether no matter where you are, what industry you're in. I think for us, it was definitely the uncertain times. We made it all the way to the first race. We'd got through preseason testing, and it almost started Friday practice before they cancelled the event and NBA, closed. And then obviously, Universal and Disney and all that kind of stuff. So we were kind of sent home packing. So it's, I think, kind of getting to that point of being ready to go and then jumping on a plane and heading home and then thrown into 6 to 8 weeks of unknowing. I think that's been the hardest part for so many people, is just not knowing what was going to come and what was going to happen. So it was definitely exciting that Roger Penske, obviously the new owner of the NTT IndyCar Series and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, was able to with partners like NBC and everything to make it possible and get pretty much a 90% season back in play with a lot of double headers and a lot of crazy events and single day events and things like that. But it was great to come out of the blocks fast and win, I think, as a team, the first 4 races of the season, which was a lot of fun.
I want to expand on that. That's a great statistic that you bring up. And the extension to that, Scott, is that it's something like it's been a decade or more since somebody has led from start to finish. That in itself was remarkable, mate, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely, it had me a little bit nervous. We had such a great points lead going on. I think 117 points at one point, and that dwindled, I think, all the way, less than 20 points as we ended up at the championship there at the final. But you don't want to be that statistic too that lost it, with a race to go or the last event. And we've been lucky enough to be on the receiving side of that, where we've been able to jump or tie break or do something like, to regain the championship lead. But yeah, definitely exciting for the team. Chip's 13th, IndyCar Championship, my sixth, and definitely I think a year in the way that it came and how it started and, the progression that we saw through the year with, the likes of COVID and how I think so many industries learned to deal with it. But, I think a big thanks to NASCAR too. I think they definitely paved the way, not just for IndyCar, but for so many sporting entities around the world to get back in action and able to do it in a safe way.
In a personal sense, did you take extra precautions just to be on the safe side? Because you can't, when you're in that position as championship leader or, you're a professional racer, you can't risk getting it, Scott, can you?
Yeah, it was kind of, I think everybody, our team especially, the protocols that IndyCar set out were pretty strict, even from the travel standpoint to, starting at Texas where it was, a single day event. We always talked about that being, a possibility, but they pulled it off, but leaving, 2 planes instead of 1 to have social distancing and the confinements and the trucks to only 6 people in a truck. To the process of eating lunch and just everything that went into it was almost over the top, but in a sense it was definitely the way that you needed to do it. So no staying in hotels, no restaurants, no anything like that, and then going straight back home and staying basically in your little bubble with our family. But for me it was it was a great time for us too, because of I had busy off season. To have that kind of break, because we just had a little baby boy, in December. So it was nice to have that moment. But I think everybody was very strict. I think every sporting entity was extremely strict, and then you saw that change, I think, later in the year as things, started to open up a little bit more.
Did you ever have a moment where you sort of went, whew, because life habit kicks in, but you've made a fundamental shift or change in the way you have to do things, as you just detailed. Were there ever moments where you went, oh, far out, I can't do that, or double check yourself?
Yeah, I think it's more about the people around you, maybe. I think it's you're in a very confined situation with team members and crew members, and we're traveling with 60 to 80 people, going to these events, and it's not them. I think they, definitely at the confines of work or anything like that, it's very strict. But going home, to whether their kids have, being able to go back to school, or their spouses maybe, on the front line and working at the hospitals. So there's just so many situations, and we did have a few small outbreaks within the team. There was a bit of an issue when Jimmy Johnson started doing the seat fits, and he got, had a false positive, actually, it turned out to be. But, that definitely sent us into a bit of a tailspin, because it exposed us to a lot of people that had to sit home out of one of our busy weekends. So there were some spots, I think, that we definitely did see that we were like, oh, that was lucky, or that caught us off guard. So we learned from a lot of situations, but honestly, I think everybody did a very good job, and there weren't too many issues.
Dave Turner, who you know well, a very good producer of television here, Motorsport Television and other sport in New Zealand, who you spoke to not long after you won the crown. DT reminded me, Scott, in the lead up to this chat, hunter or hunted. They chased you for the season. So, I mean, having a points lead is probably the thing you would prefer the most, but are you hungrier as the chaser, or was it okay to be the one that they were all after?
I think it was definitely the first time we'd been in that scenario. Obviously, the first time for me from the start to finish. I don't know. I think you would always take the leading situation, and for us, once we got to that final race and you kind of look at the obstacles or how difficult it's going to be, to have that kind of 30 plus point buffer, made things a little bit easier, but then when you're also hunting, you can go all out because you've got nothing to lose. And that was the case that Joseph was in, and it definitely got pretty nerve wracking, I think, in St. Pete, when, he finally got to the lead. You're like, wow. So if we do have a mechanical problem here, or if I, touch the wall and I don't finish 11th or better, then he's in the perfect storm right now. And I've been in that situation, and it's worked out for me. So, you do have a lot of scenarios that start running through your head, but I would definitely like to, to be the hunted, I think, always.
You've always got great assets from the Ganassi team in those moments, helping you with the right amount of information, Scott. But how aware are you as all that's unfolding? I mean, we're on the edge of our seat watching the coverage at home here, but how aware are you of what's going on at the time and what you need to do to clinch it when it comes down to it like that?
Yeah, you honestly don't want to change things too much, right? You don't want to take yourself out of the norm. You don't want to
overthink it,
analyze or anything like that. You just want to get on with it, and that's what happened. And after the race, the strategists and that, they're like, you only needed to finish 11th, and you were racing pretty hard for the podium. And I was like, well, I felt like if I wasn't, then I was going to put myself in more of a compromising situation. And especially that weekend with how slow the pace car was, and, how many restarts we had, and, anything offline just became, a bit of a craziness for several laps, So it was, it's a strange situation, but we, in that situation too, we had 3 weeks off, to overanalyze everything before we got to the final race. So I knew exactly where I needed to be at what situation, when, the most laps led points kicked in, when it didn't. And, you know exactly where you need to be. And obviously we made it pretty easy on ourselves.
All that experience, Scott, coming to the fore, pressure and being able to cope with it, because you've done it so many times, that's got to be a great asset for you, doesn't it?
It is, but it's not just me, it's the team. I think everybody feels it, but I think, pressure is something that you definitely put on yourself. But, all of us in this industry, and especially at the height, it's constant. It's part of the business, right? But it's kind of funny, like, our season was going so well, and then we had this crash situation where we were a tailspin, and everyone's like, what are you changing? What are you guys doing wrong? And it's just like, we didn't really change anything. It just, we didn't have it for a period of time, which was definitely frustrating. And then, you start to have those scenarios run through your head. But it's funny, because from the other side, when we've seen, teams and drivers and combos go into those situations and they start to get into a bit of a tailspin, and then you push harder and make them, fall into more mistakes. But for us, I don't know. It was a weird blip in the season that I'm glad it's definitely over. That's for
sure. I'll bet. There were some moves within the Ganassi kind of, I guess you could say, engineering group this year. One headline I read from within the team was, they took a great outfit and they made it even better. Is that how it felt for you, or was there still some sort of settling in when they made some of those changes?
I think there's always a settling in period. It still is. It's constantly changing. I think for us, the biggest problem was that we were just kind of thin. We didn't have the manpower to. There's a lot of development programs going on, whether it's the damper program, the shaker rig, the wind tunnel, to the simulation, driver simulation. There's so many things going on. And for us, we just didn't have the manpower to process it. So consuming the Ford GT program, which, is a large group of people, probably 40 people, taking that back on, adding another IndyCar. And really, we started to get a little bit rich on the side of engineering, which helped us. And I think that's a good reason why we hit the ground running once we got to the first race. But, also the likes of, Michael Cannon coming on from another team, having his expertise, but also fresh eyes. I think we'd been stuck in an ecosystem for so long. It's kind of like if you're Apple or Android, you can't kind of keep just doing the same thing. It was great to have someone just say like, hey, why do you guys do it that way? We've done it this way before or something, and it definitely opened our minds to a lot of different things. And I think that process has still got a lot to come and mature from that situation.
Kiwis in the paddock. We know and have often talked about Blair Julian. Obviously, Taranaki Boyd been with you for a long period of time. But a new one joined the paddock this year in Scott McLaughlin. Big change for this young man. He's got a lot of experience in supercars and coming in as the three-time champion there. As a fellow Kiwi, how did you sort of welcome him? And what are your initial impressions of him as he's on this now huge growth curve?
Well, I'm a big fan of supercars. I've watched from day dot. Every weekend I'm watching, practice to qualifying to the races. And a big fan of McLaughlin and what he's been able to do. Obviously, we knew with Penske going down to the supercars that they were definitely going to, shake things about and probably be extremely successful as we saw. But I think his stats, whether you look at the qualifying to the race wins to the championships. The guy's a beast, man. He's done an amazing job. But I was pumped, everybody's like, oh, it's are you excited to have another Kiwi on the grid? And I'm like, it's fantastic. It's so cool. Obviously he spent a little bit of time in Australia, so we need to work on his accent a little bit. He sounds very Australian. And obviously he's with the team that is extremely good. But, it was great to see that they didn't hinder his transition. I think with a year that was so crazy, he came and did the test in Austin and then, was able to come and finish off the year at St. Pete. I think there was definitely some eye openers for him in these situations, which it's going to be. And, I wish him all the best, man. It's going to be cool. Hopefully once this COVID thing's, done, we can hang out a little bit and get to catch up. But, I knew for a while we'd been chatting because he asked me, texted me one time. He's like, "Hey, can I talk to you about IndyCar racing?" Yeah, of course.
What did you tell him?
I was like, "Come and do it, man! Like it's amazing, And I know his love for America, and obviously his wife is American too. So I think it's the perfect match, man. And looking forward to having him on the grid next year.
Wonderful stuff, mate. Great endorsement. Righto, let's play short game. Firstly, 2021. We'd love to see you have a crack at a seventh crown and maybe even another Indy 500. That would be super special. And Scott, do you maybe you don't, but we do. Do you pause to reflect on the company that you are now in terms of wins and success in IndyCar history? I mean, to be up alongside the likes of an AJ and a Mario, I mean, that's super.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And yes, I think probably the last 2 or 3 years as we moved up, started the winning ranks, with the answers and then, Michael Andretti and then Mario Andretti we're getting closer to. I think AJ's definitely pretty safe, kind of out on his own little island with race wins. But, we can definitely achieve, the seventh. It's funny when we were sitting on 5 championships and talking about 7, it felt so far away. But now, obviously, it feels a lot closer. I know it's only one number away, but it feels like it's it's within reach or a possibility. But no, I feel very, very lucky. Very fortunate to be in the situation that I am. Very thankful for my parents and everybody in New Zealand, the syndicate that came together to enable me to come to race in America, and how it's all played out is crazy. So I want to make the most of it, man. I know it's a short window and one that I've really enjoyed so far. So no, I want to keep cracking on, and obviously next year I think is a great opportunity to try and get that 7th championship.
The team from Motorsport New Zealand reminded me before we got cracking on this about the fact that, it's been a little while since that Motorsport New Zealand junior racing as a 13-year-old Formula V and so on. Are they nice memories for you as well? And how important was it to get that at a young age and get cracking?
Yeah, honestly, they were my best memories. I was doing an interview a couple of weeks back, and I was talking about my dad and just those scenarios of touring New Zealand in the summer, kind of camping. We didn't have much money, so we would always, pitch a tent and, camp beside the truck or the trailer or whatever it was. And, for me, go-karting and the junior formula, especially in New Zealand, were memories I'll never forget, whether it was playing cricket in Invercargill, at late at night, like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, because the sun was still up, It was just, those were the best memories, to go into Queenstown and getting kicked off the luge and getting in trouble. And, those are the memories that I'll definitely never forget. And ones that, I think gave me a lot of passion, I think, for racing, but also, taught me a lot of the fundamentals, with my dad and Kenny Smith and all those people that, I was able to hang out with and be around at that young age. But New Zealand, as you know, is an amazing place and something I didn't really respect or be thankful enough for, I think, until I kind of moved away and checked out the rest of the world. New Zealand, we're very lucky people. Most
definitely. Couple to finish, Scott, here. So what about, I don't like putting a time limit on it because you clearly still love it immensely. What is it that drives you now, mate? I mean, you chalked up a milestone. It was 40 this year, I think it was. So, I know you love the competition. You clearly love the cars and the tech. Is it a wonderful mixture of all three that still drives you?
Yeah, I think it's never one thing, right? Whether you're looking for speed or anything, it's never one thing you can put your finger on. It's a combination of many. I think probably the team members. I think I remember that walking through the door in 2002 at Chip Ganassi Racing and just kind of feeling pretty intimidated by the sense and walking in. They're not honestly the happiest bunch of people, but when you walk in there, all they want to do is win. And if you don't win, they're even unhappier. So it's competition. It's the drivers, team combos. The competition level now from when I started to where it is now is crazy. There's no small teams now. There are no uncapable drivers. The combos are very strong. So that I think competition is always the driver. My wife is extremely competitive, so she definitely fires me up. And to have a team leader like Chip Ganassi, I think he's fierce, man, and honestly just loves to win. He loves winners and he loves winning, and I think that is what makes this team so successful, is having someone like him from the top, pushing everybody. But it's I don't know, how lucky am I, man? I get to do something I love. It's I don't want to give it up. I love doing what I'm doing, and I want to. I know it's a small window, so as I said earlier, I want to make it all worthwhile.
Okay, so is there a race or a trophy that you'd love to maybe add to the collection behind you there between now and then?
Definitely another 500. I was bummed this year. We had a very dominant car through the month of August. And unfortunately, just for strategy, it kind of slipped away. We knew that Sato wasn't going to make it on fuel, so I think that one really hurt. We were in the best situation, covering all bases, and they didn't restart the race, so that was frustrating. So for me, I think it's still the largest one-day sporting event in the world. Obviously no spectators there this year, but 400,000 people. It's a crazy race to try and win. Bathurst would be amazing to get to at some point. I did the 12-hour earlier this year, which was really cool. That for me was a box to tick to at least have driven Bathurst. It's very difficult with manufacturer contracts and just how things work out time wise. But I'm so glad, and hopefully I think in the near future I'll be able to get back down there. And Lamar is another passion that I've really enjoyed and really loved. But again, it's tricky. It's tricky to jump around these different series and different manufacturers right at the minute.
We would love to see you on the grid of the Bathurst 1000, mate. Let's hope that happens one day. Final ones. Would you ever do the kind of thing that your great mate Dario is doing now? He's kept that connection with Ganassi and has a lot to offer. Beyond life in the cockpit, you have so much experience that you could share, Scott, with young racers and so on. Is that something that interests you as well?
Well, I don't want to put Dario out of a job. He'll be, he's still, he needs a paycheck. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's, I think Dario's situation was, touch wood, hopefully, a little bit different to mine, where he was kind of forced into retirement,
Yes.
and wasn't able to race. I think sports cars is still hopefully something that I can do for another period of time. We'll have to wait and see. I think the future is bright for sports car racing, not just in America, but globally, and especially with, the introduction of hybrid, I think on a worldwide scale, and hopefully a formula that, crosses many paths. But yeah, I don't know. I love racing. I enjoy the racing in America, maybe even New Zealand, Australia, but something, yes, I'd love to still be involved. I think the clear path for me is either sports car or being in a driver age situation like Dario, kind of gets to sit back and, talk and reminisce and, talk a lot about memories and things like that, obviously, and there's no stress. So it could be a kind of an interesting combo.
Some great old stories. Right, last one. Thank you. You've been very good with your time here, mate. And for the licence holders, the officials, the constituents of Motorsport New Zealand that are watching, what kind of, particularly for the young drivers, the world has changed a lot in the almost 20 years that you've been in IndyCar, and you did something that was quite unique when you first set out on this journey to, risk and reward to have a crack at this. You had a big swing at it and it's paid off. What sort of advice would you give to that next brigade coming through now, mate, about what it takes to do it, to succeed? Because longevity and those connections have been a big part of it. I mean, you look at how long you've had with Ganassi and so on, and Stefan, I mean, they're a big part of why you've been successful too, aren't they?
Yeah, it is. I think loyalty is, at least in my line, loyalty has been huge, and I've seen kind of the good sides and bad sides of that, and bad sides of that more recent, I think, just with different situations. But it goes a long way. But I think, the effort, effort equals results, and there was definitely periods, I think, in my kind of teen years where, I wasn't putting in enough effort. And I remember my mum, coming in one morning and saying, do you want to race cars, or do you want to be a social butterfly? And I was like, well, I want to race cars. I don't want to just bounce around and, be friends with people. I want to get out there. So, I think for me, I learned so much from the down years. I think those are the situations, for me in 2004 and 2005, just after winning a championship and then having dismal years. With the years, I learned the most about myself, the people around me, and how thankful I was to have the support. And you need support. That's another thing. So yeah, effort equals results, man. You got to put in the hard work. And I think these days it's even harder. Those situations are much more harder to come by. So put the effort in. Make sure you love it. Make sure you're chasing your passion. And I guess lastly, enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it. That's for me. I love it. I love it. I love being able to do what I do. And I think everybody in motorsport, gets to this point, that's been the biggest part, is the love for the sport.
Perfect way to end it, mate. Thank you so much for the candid chat and for the insights. And from everyone back here, massive congratulations, and go get them in 2021. We look forward to seeing even more success.
I can't wait. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
There he is, Scott Dixon, everybody. And don't forget, of course, for all the latest news and information on events happening near you, licensing details and more, head to the Motorsport New Zealand website, and we'll catch up with another Fast Kiwi real soon.